Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you're brand new here, I'm FiddlinJonny. This is my Fiddle channel and magic product review. And before we do any magic product review here, we always do a quick fiddle tune. But just for your teaser, we're going to do EDCeight by Craig Petty today. And I tried to pick a fiddle tune that in my head worked for the scenario on this one. So anyway, see if you recognize the tune. Alright, well, we will leave it there. A little Star Wars. I was sort of thinking, who are some of our current stars of magic and the wars between them? And so I thought that fit with EDCeight by Craig Petty. Stick around. We'll get into a little bit of the controversy, but more importantly, we'll get into this product and if it's a product that's right for you. Stick around and we'll see you in a moment. Alright, hello everyone. Let's get into EDCeight by Craig Petty and released through Murphy's Magic. Now, a lot of times I feel like I ramble on and I want to keep it tight and short. I think in my rambling I tend to go into a lot of detail, maybe detail that you don't always need. So I've always working on keeping it tight and short and pretty unsuccessfully. Today's video will be rambling. It's not going to be tight and short, because there's so much about this release that I want to touch on and give you just my perspective. So let me start off with, and I don't know if you care about any of this or not, but just so you know where I'm coming from. So when I saw the initial trailer for this, when it first was announced like this was going to be a release, I had no interest in it at all. I have historically purchased a lot of Craig Petty products. I've been satisfied with every Craig Petty purchase I get. So it tends to lean me towards like, oh, I'll purchase whatever they come out with next. I saw the trailer and went, it didn't excite me. And the truth is when I do these reviews, since I'm purchasing a lot of these products, I want to be able to purchase products that I can use. Otherwise I'm just throwing money down the drain. And so that was sort of my initial take, is like, I don't know that I like the routine. And I don't know that's something that I would use. It just didn't excite me that much. And I didn't like the way the trailer was done, where there was so much cutting in it. I just want to see it full. Just give me a simple, straightforward performance. But I know we don't always get those in our trailers, and that's just sort of the way it is. But because of it, I decided not to purchase it. So, bad on Murphy's. I know they can't satisfy everyone. And I certainly went like, yeah, I'm passing. Then the controversy happened between Craig Petty and Michael Weber, and Tim Toronto as well to some degree. And so then I got interested and started looking at it. And then I realized in that process I had better review it for you guys so that we can peel away all the controversy and focus in just exclusively on the product. And is the product any damn good? What I realized after purchasing the product and going through the tutorial, that I needed to address the controversy. I don't know that I need to, but I want to address the controversy so that if you come here often, I think you get a sense of who I am, what I like or dislike, and my point of view. So my point of view on this one is that Craig Petty is often a pretty controversial figure. Either you love him or hate him. And so no matter where you stand on that continuum, my humble opinion is that Craig is 100% in the right on this one. I think he is right to release it, and I think Michael Weber is off base. I think Michael, if you're not familiar with the controversy, you should go to the Magic Cafe, just put in EDCeight and look for it there. You can go to Craig Petty's YouTube channel, Magic TV, or listen to the podcast that Craig Petty and Lloyd Barnes do together called the Magic Podcast, to sort of get more detail around the controversy. But essentially Michael Weber, a very well-respected magician, creator, mentalist, said, look, Craig, reached out to Craig and said, you need to pull the product. I released something very similar to this X amount of years ago, about a decade ago I think, and therefore you got to pull the product. And when Craig looked at it and you know, ultimately made a decision like, no, I'm not going to pull the product. I'm going to go ahead and release it. And Murphy's Magic seemed to be supportive of that as well and not pulling it. And then in the meantime, they're just more erupted around some of the behavior from Michael Weber that it's just not really acceptable, I think, or yeah, not cool, quite honestly. You can get all of that in the Magic Cafe and go to Magic TV and see all of that. So I think at the end of the day, what I came away with, the more I watched the tutorial, Craig is employing a principle that has been around for a long time, not created by Michael Weber, and therefore created a routine using the principle. Now, Michael Weber, it sounds like, created a routine, did create a routine using this principle with receipts, released it as a PDF, a handful of pages, and you had to belong to a specific group to be able to purchase it. And so there's a big difference here, I think, as well as that Craig Petty has released 6 hours worth of tutorial material that expands on the initial idea and comes nowhere near close to being sort of a PDF released on a couple sheets of paper from a decade ago. There's similarity, and I certainly think that Michael Weber deserves credit and an acknowledgement for sure. But to have the product pulled, I think, would be a bad idea. And I'm glad that Craig decided not to pull it, and that Murphy's Magic decided not to pull it. So that's my take on sort of the controversy. No matter how you might feel about Craig, no matter how you might feel about Michael Weber, I think Craig was right to release it, and that's where I sort of stand on it. You don't care about any of that, that's fine, because what I'm really here is to provide you with good, honest reviews of products. So let's get into what exactly is EDCeight. It's basically a mind-reading effect, and it is framed with giving your spectator 5 receipts from grocery stores. And when I would present it, I'd say there's about 50 different items across all of these receipts. I want you simply to pick any one of the receipts, pick a single item off of that receipt, and then going through some of the procedure, you will be able to know exactly, with 100% accuracy, what the product is that they chose. That's what EDCeight is. However, that is the simplest, most banal way of, it's the essence of what it is. How you want to build and structure and present around that can be done 100 different ways. And I think this project should have been called EDCeight by Craig Petty and Friends, because I think the and Friends portion here provides so many additional ideas to it that really adds a ton of value to this. So, and I could go into every single one of those, but I'm not, because it would take up so much time. But I'll touch on some of that as we go along here. Let's just start off with, what are you going to get? So in this envelope that you will receive on the back, mine is the US version. There's also a UK version. You're going to get 5 Tyvek receipts in there, printing on the front and the back. I'll bring these up close so you can see them shortly. You're going to get 1 crib sheet. You're going to get a downloadable / streaming tutorial that's 6 hours in length, so there's no scrimping on the hours and hours of tutorial that you're going to get. And you're also going to get this downloadable PDF that's the tools to create your own receipts. So if your receipts wear out, or you want to create your own unique receipts, you can certainly do that with the tool that they have provided for you. There's other things that are not included as you go through with the, I'll call it the with friends section. Like, there's things that are envelopes that are used, there are things with wallets that are used, there's things with cards that are used, there's things with a credit card that's used. None of those things are included, but it doesn't matter, because those are all optional in the presentation of this, but I wanted to let you know about that. Usually I go into, how are the instructions? I don't want to go into a lot of detail around the instructions, other than they're fantastic and great, and I don't need to go into the detail. The one detail I would highlight is that to date, in my opinion, this is the nicest filmed tutorial I've ever seen. Over at Murphy's Magic, someone named Midge is the videographer on this, and it has a cinematic feel. and it looks beautiful. The lighting is done so nicely. I think it's the nicest looking tutorial I have ever seen on a release before. If they gave an annual release for the best cinematography in a tutorial, I think this one would win hands down on that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the and friends section and a little bit of the detail. It opens up with Craig Petty just with live performances. There's I think it's like 26 minutes of just Craig Petty performing it. I think he's got 5 full performances on there with his take and presentation and variations on the presentation on there. But then Craig's going to go over, he has an hour and 34 minutes where he goes over the method, the principle, and the different ways in which the handling is the word I'll use for the structure of his routines and the delivery of those routines. And then we start going into the friends section. So he's got all friends who have taken the principle and the receipts and have designed their own routines and take on it with using this principle. So Michael Murray's the first one on here. Now Michael Murray doesn't appear on here, and Michael Murray's a great mentalist, but Craig will spend about almost a half hour basically going over Michael Murray's presentation. Then, in my opinion, maybe one of the best parts about this release is you get 2 hours, I think 2 hours and 8 minutes of Peter Turner and Craig Petty in a discussion. And Pete Turner will spend such a great amount of time talking about his take on it. He talks about Craig's presentation that would never work for him. Craig really is much more of this comedic magician, stand-up style of performance. Whereas Pete Turner is a serious mentalist and a very different vibe. And yet he talks about how he took that principle, structured his own routine with the principle, and goes over that. And he also goes into a lot of detail about just the emotions of your spectator and how you craft a presentation and put it together, how you talk about it as you're doing it. I don't think I'd ever quite captured how smart Peter Turner is when it comes to an audience and understanding audience and structure and presentation. He went into more detail on this than I've seen him on other projects, and I really appreciate it. And in my humble opinion, the Pete Turner section alone is well worth the price of this. If they didn't send me any the receipts, just gave me a download of it, it would be worth it. I found it super valuable, and it fit more of my performance style as well. Not that I'm anything in terms of like Peter Turner in terms of presentation, but I love the mentalism and the way he thinks. Next, you're going to get Peter Nardi. He does about 20 minutes in length with his version of EDC. He does use a wallet, and he uses his Assassin wallet for his presentation. You're going to get Lloyd Barnes, and Lloyd Barnes has created an index system for a homemade index system, one that you could create quite easily. He also uses one where he uses pictures, and you can take pictures of every one of the products and do a reveal using pictures, and pictures on your phone would be one way to do it, or you could print the actual pictures out. And then Javier Frohnmeyer is going to do his with cards and an index system, so another way in which to present it. So between all the different folks who are on there, they just have their own unique takes, and I think for me what it informed me from my initial point of view where I was not excited by it, getting to see the different takes on it made me realize that I was wrong, and that when you take this principle and apply to how you could construct your own presentation, it's good for everybody in that respect. So tutorial really good in that respect. Let's talk about the gimmick itself. And almost every pro that I say here is also a con. And I'll also say here as I talk about the receipts is that I have a lot of magician thinking going on, and I recognize that, but I'm going to point it out and probably point out that my thinking is probably wrong. Let's see if these can stay in focus as I bring these up here for you to look at. So these are made out of Tyvek paper, and if you're not familiar with Tyvek, Tyvek is super strong, should never rip, and is really good in that way. And so because they're durable out of Tyvek, I always say that is an awesome thing. Anytime I order sort of a magic prop that, like, let's say it's an envelope and it's made out of Tyvek, I'm always really happy about that because I know it's going to last me a long time. These will last me a long time as well. The downside to that, in my opinion, is these don't feel like real receipts. They look like real receipts in every way, but I've never had a receipt printed on Tyvek paper before. So now the upside of that is they do provide a program for you where you can create your own receipts on whatever paper you're most comfortable with and be able to perform with those, which I think is absolutely fine and takes care of that if it's a major problem for you. Of course, where I'm at, almost all receipts come on thermal paper, so you'd have to find thermal paper to get them printed on, but that's not impossible at all. I'm going to go into some of my pros and cons right now with the Gimmick itself. A con for me is that on each one of these receipts, it gives the address of the store in which the shopping was done. However, none of these locations are anywhere near me or even in the state that I'm in. This one's from Sacramento, California. This one here is from Chicago, Illinois. This one here is from Tucson, Arizona, and another one from California. So if a spectator pays any level of attention to my receipts, they'll know, like, wait, this is nowhere near here. Why are you shopping at a Trader Joe's in another state and then at a Costco at another state? I can say every time that I have presented this, now I've presented this a number of times, performed it, never once have I had a spectator point out that the cities do not match the city that I'm in. So I think that's predominantly magic thinking or magician's thinking on my part, but something I did want to point out to spectators. I did do a presentation where I asked my spectator, I said, look, this is a new routine I'm working on. I often will ask for feedback. Can you tell me a little bit about what you thought about this? And one of the things they did mention is like, well, those don't feel like real receipts. Those can't be real receipts. And I acknowledge that, yeah, that's true. I had these printed up. They are not real receipts. I did redirect them and say, well, how do you think that affects what the method might be? And of course, there's no way they can engineer that just because these are printed on Tyvek that they can reverse engineer what the method is. So there's no fear of that because there's no relationship with that. So Tyvek Pro, Tyvek, it's a con. Cities listed on here that I don't live in, that is a con. Pro, you can make your own receipts if you'd like to. But those are the gimmicks. I hope that's helpful for you if you're considering this as a purchase. When we look at what the skill level is here, it's beginner skill level, 100% beginner. You'll be able to perform this immediately after watching the tutorial. I usually talk about some of the pros. I've mentioned most of them. I think this is beautifully filmed. I'll have to give a lot of credit for Craig because Craig has worked really hard to hide the method. Oftentimes when this principle is used, you go, oh, it's a math trick. And clearly they're using some sort of math to figure that out. That is disguised. You will never see that when you're performing this. And oftentimes if there's math involved, I don't like it because I don't want to do math. There is math involved in this. You just need to be able to add. And the highest in addition you'll have to do is up to 30. And you might have to do some subtraction if you decide to do the subtraction method. But it's simple math. Literally, if you can add 2, 4, 6, 8, you can do this. I'll also want to make sure to punctuate. The ad copy says it's completely self-working, and it's 100% self-working. You don't ever have to worry about any slides. You don't have to worry about angle issues. It is 100% self-working. They just need to pick an item off of one of these and you're ready to go. I know that I mentioned the crib sheet earlier, and that may make some people uncomfortable because it usually involves like, oh, there's memory work and I'm going to need a crib sheet to memorize stuff. I don't want to have to carry around a crib sheet. The crib sheet is hidden and mostly when it's presented here on the back of a credit card. You bring out your credit card as part of the performance, but it's completely justified and makes sense. I have actually performed it with the crib sheet completely out, sitting on the table, performance table. No one ever notices it, never asks why it's there. I'm able to do just a quick glance at it and know exactly what product they have chosen. I will add that what I did learn, here's a pro tip for you, is that you really want to make sure there's a portion where you say, whatever product you pick, let's say one of the items is Cool Ranch Doritos. They really need to check every single receipt to see if Cool Ranch Doritos is on there, because you will want to know how many times that item appears, on which receipts the item that they pick is on. If they miss one of the receipts that it's on, you will not know what it is. And I had a performance where I think the product was on like 4 of the 5 receipts, and they saw it only on 3, and I could not for the life of me figure out why it wasn't working, and ultimately realized that it was on another receipt. So you really do want to make sure, if you do a reveal and it's not the right receipt, then you know obviously they didn't get all of the receipts that it was on. So you want to make sure that you say, check those other receipts before we move on to make sure it's not on those receipts. I do like that this can be presented as everything from a prediction effect, a mind reading effect. You can do a drawing duplication on here. You can do so many different ways in which you do a reveal. You can employ the one ahead principle for some of the variations on this as well. So there's a lot of things you can play around with in how you structure and put this together, your routine. All right, I normally go into all the cons. I think I've mentioned every single con right now as I gander at my list. On my cons, the one thing I will say, and I've said a variation on this, Javier Funmeyer says on the trailer, he says, in the trailer he says, the receipts feel like real receipts. Yeah, I don't think so, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. When I think about who's going to like this, I think if you're a mentalist, this is the audience that it's best for. But if you are someone who really likes organic, everyday objects, you're going to like this as well. However, I will say a con for me, like this for me doesn't feel like an everyday object. I do carry receipts around with me in my wallet every now and then, but they don't stay in my wallet very long. They're usually important receipts that I need to save in case I'm going to return an item. I wouldn't carry my grocery receipts with me, and certainly not this many grocery receipts, but I think if you're good at performing, you can find a way that you can present it and talk about the receipts as an everyday carry. But for a lot of folks, I think they'll see this as a good everyday carry. I do want to say the strongest takeaway I have from this is not the routine, but it is the method. It is a method that's used in a number of different tricks or effects that we've had over the years. I think Craig's employed it really brilliantly here, but I walked away going, and I've been thinking every single day since, is that, oh, I have not given the due to this method, and have been thinking about what could I create that's original and unique utilizing this principle. And for me, that's where the real value was in this release. If you're not a creative person or you don't like to have to create your own magic, the release itself is really good. But for me, I walked away going like, oh, what can I create using this method? Because I haven't, and I think there's real potential there. I also like that this is a trick that, like a lot of stuff, you know, sometimes can be very gender specific, like the wallet stuff. This is not sort of, I feel, gender specific, you know, whether male or female, you'll be able to carry receipts because people use receipts regardless of gender. Let's talk about the cost. In the United States, it's $24.95, I believe, at most retailers. I think that's a bargain, quite honestly. I would have accepted this purely as a download for what I got on this release. I'm glad that I got the receipts, to be honest, but I think even without receiving the physical part of the product, the download by itself would be worth $24.95, if not more. So that's my take on this overall, addressing a little bit of the controversy and the product itself. If you want to address any of those things in the comments, please leave a comment. I would love to get your perspective on the controversy, love your perspective on if you purchased it and what you think of the actual trick itself. Maybe share some things that other folks reading the comments might appreciate it. And also just leave a comment to say hi. And If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. And if you haven't hit like, please, please, please hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. That's it from me. Thank you so much for being here. I'm FiddlinJonny, and remember to keep fiddling around with your magic. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.